Have you ever wondered if the story we know about fallen angels is complete? What if I told you that there was a specific group of 200 celestial beings who not only disobeyed God, but left an eternal scar on humanity? Leave us your comment. Do you believe there are mysteries in the Bible that have yet to be revealed? Today, we are going to dive into one of the most hidden, disturbing, and spiritual accounts in all of Scripture. A mystery that begins in an almost overlooked verse in the book of Genesis, but opens the door to a cosmic war, a silent rebellion, and a divine judgment that forever changed the fate of the world. Genesis 6, 1-4. Just 4 verses, so brief that many pass over them without pause. But within these lines lies one of the oldest and most controversial enigmas in the Bible. When human beings began to increase in number on the earth, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. Who were these sons of God, and why did their union with human women provoke such divine judgment that God regretted creating mankind? Some argue they were simply descendants of Seth, others that it was a metaphor. But there is a much older, deeper, and more dangerous current, one that claims they were actual angels, fallen angels, beings from another plane who descended to the physical world with a hidden purpose. The Book of Enoch, an ancient text excluded from the biblical canon, but cited in Jude 1:14-15, names these angels 200 in total. Led by a being called Semjaza, or Shemihaza, they descended upon Mount Hermon, a place the book itself says was cursed by the pact they made. There, according to Enoch, these angels swore to take human wives and bear children. It was a deliberate transgression, not an accident. They crossed a boundary set by heaven, mixing the eternal with the corruptible, the spiritual with the carnal. And here begins the tragedy. The offspring born of this union were giants, the Nephilim, hybrid beings of supernatural strength, known in other cultures as titans, demigods, ancient heroes. In Hebrew tradition, they were monsters, souls trapped between two worlds, violent spirits that upon dying found no peace. According to Enoch, these spirits became the demons that dwell among us today, bodiless, seeking to inhabit humans. Can you imagine? Demons not created by God, but born from the illicit mixing of rebellious angels with humanity. How many of our spiritual struggles today are echoes of that ancient disobedience? But who was Semjaza, this leader of the 200? According to tradition, he was one of the princes of heaven, not an ordinary angel. In some Kabbalistic sources, it is hinted that he had authority over legions and that his beauty rivaled Lucifer's. And yet, his desire for the daughters of men blinded him. He convinced 199 other angels to make a pact with him. One by one, they descended. One by one, they were lost. And why 200? Isn't it curious that the number is so specific? In Hebrew numerology, 200 is represented by the letter Resh, which symbolizes head, beginning, but also fall. Was this a prophetic sign that these beings sought to become heads, lords over the earth, instead of remaining servants of the Most High? In Enoch 6-10, the punishment is described with chilling starkness. God sends the archangel Uriel to warn Noah of the coming flood. Michael, Raphael, and Gabriel are commissioned to bind the rebellious angels, and so they do. Semjaza and his companions are chained beneath the mountains in prisons of darkness until the day of judgment. In Jude 1:6, we find an echo of this. And the angels who did not keep their positions of authority, but abandoned their proper dwelling, these he has kept in darkness, bound with everlasting chains. Do you recognize it? The New Testament confirms this mystery, but barely touches it, as if it were too dangerous to fully expose. In 2 Peter 2:4, we also read, "For if God did not spare angels when they sinned, but sent them to hell, putting them in chains of darkness to be held for judgment." The Greek word used here for hell is not Hades, but Tartarus, a unique term in the entire Bible. Tartarus, in Greek mythology, was the deepest prison of the underworld, even below Hades. Why does Peter use precisely that word? Could it be that ancient readers knew exactly what he meant? A real, sealed prison where the 200 await the final judgment. This punishment was so severe, so absolute, that it was never repeated. There is no record of another angelic rebellion of this kind. It was a singular act, a turning point, but its consequences didn't end there. According to the book of Enoch, these angels also taught humans forbidden knowledge, how to make weapons, enchantments, spells, astrology, witchcraft, cosmetics, potions. Humanity was not only corrupted by the blood of their offspring, but also by the distorted knowledge they received. Enoch calls this the corruption of the human heart. How many wars, idolatries, and perversions were born from that impure wisdom? And the most disturbing part, some interpreters claim that this knowledge has been secretly passed down for millennia, that there are human lineages, secret societies, and esoteric religions that still preserve the codes taught by the fallen. Occultism, alchemy, dark arts, could they be echoes of that first teaching? And what if some of these 200 still influence from the shadows, not physically but spiritually, guiding ideas, desires, systems? Could the Nephilim walk the earth again? In Matthew 24:37, Jesus says, "As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man." And what characterized the days of Noah? Exactly this: the presence of fallen angels, the mixing of the divine with the human, and a humanity wholly corrupted. Could Jesus be warning that a similar manifestation will occur before his return? Are we repeating that cycle? If the 200 are bound, are there others who have begun a new rebellion? This mystery isn't just about angels, it's about us, about our vulnerability, our thirst for the occult, how desire can destroy even the most exalted. But it also speaks of God's justice, of his mercy in warning, intervening, preserving a pure line through Noah, of his plan of redemption that not even fallen angels could stop. But here arises another unsettling question. Why isn't this preached more from the pulpits? Why does this account remain buried among apocryphal books, veiled mentions, and hidden traditions? Is it because it's too disturbing, too compromising for our comfortable categories of good and evil? Or perhaps because understanding this rebellion would force us to view the spiritual world with different eyes, not as a distant, abstract plane, but as a dimension that still surrounds us, watches us, influences us. And if the fallen still have echoes in our history, how much more urgent do our prayers become? How much more sacred does obedience become? The story of the 200 angels is also a warning to those who desire to see more, to those who, like Eve, wish to know good and evil without being prepared for its weight. These angels didn't sin out of hatred like Lucifer. They sinned out of desire, for beauty, for a longing that seemed pure but hid rebellion. How many times in our lives do we fall in the same way, chasing something seemingly noble, love, knowledge, pleasure, connection, but outside of God's time, place, or order? And so, like the angels, we too sign secret pacts in our hearts. Mount Hermon, where the 200 descended, still holds an air of mystery today. It rises at the border of Israel, Syria, and Lebanon like a geographical scar of that ancient pact. In the Bible, this mountain appears several times, but rarely with explanation. Psalm 133 mentions the dew of Hermon as something that descends upon Mount Zion. Is it poetic, or could there be a connection between what descended there in antiquity and what must be redeemed in Zion? Ancient rabbis believed Mount Hermon was spiritually sealed, and some Christians even claim that the transfiguration of Jesus, that moment when his glory was revealed to Peter, James, and John, happened there. Was it perhaps a symbolic act of redemption, a divine light shining where the darkest rebellion once occurred? The names of some of the 200 angels have been preserved: Semjaza, Azazel, Arachiel, Ramiel. Azazel, in particular, is mentioned in Leviticus as the recipient of the scapegoat, the goat upon which the sins of the people were placed before being sent into the wilderness. Coincidence? The book of Enoch says that Azazel taught men to make swords, knives, and shields, that he taught war, and that God ordered Raphael to bind him and cover him in darkness. The fact that his name persists even in the Levitical rituals suggests that his sin was particularly abominable, and that his memory became tied to the very concept of atonement. And yet, the deepest message of this story is not terror, it is warning, preparation, because if all this happened before the flood, and Jesus said his return would be like the days of Noah, then we must prepare, not with fear, but with discernment, with prayer, with the light of the word, because the enemy's greatest weapon is not his power, it is deception. And like the 200, many today present themselves as light, as wisdom, as freedom. But behind it, there are chains, disguised pacts, desires masquerading as revelation. The story of Enoch also offers us a spiritual key. He was taken by God. He did not see death. He was raptured. Why? Because he walked with God. While everyone around him was seduced by fallen angels, Enoch remained pure, and God made him a witness to the secrets of heaven. He showed him the places of punishment, the cycles of the sun and moon, the names of the good and evil angels. And then he took him. Isn't this a foreshadowing of the rapture of the church? Isn't Enoch a symbol of the generation that will be preserved amid the coming judgment? And if Enoch was taken before the flood, could a generation also be taken before the great tribulation? The connection is powerful. Amid a corrupted humanity influenced by hidden spiritual entities, a remnant walks with God and is taken before the waters of judgment fall. This pattern is not just historical, it is prophetic. It is a sign for us. Another fascinating detail is how Revelation seems to close the circle of this story. In Revelation 9, an angel descends from heaven with the key to the abyss. He opens the pit of hell, and from it emerge beings with the appearance of locusts, with human faces and scorpion tails. Is it a metaphor? Or could it be the release of those bound since the days of Enoch? The text says they have a king over them, Abaddon or Apollyon, the angel of the abyss. Could he be one of the 200? Could he be Azazel, finally freed to unleash chaos on the earth? The 200 were punished, but not destroyed. They are waiting. Their story is not over. God's judgment was clear. They would be bound for 70 generations. Some scholars calculate that this figure might be nearing its end. And what if their return has already begun, not in flesh and blood, but in spirit? Through rebellion, forbidden knowledge, the resurgence of occultism, the arrogance of technology seeking to create life, alter DNA, dominate creation. Aren't we seeing again that temptation to be like gods? Today, more than ever, we need discernment. We need to return to the Word. Because what happened in Genesis 6 is not just ancient history, it is a living warning. It is proof that the spiritual world is real, that angels fall, that humans can be seduced, that judgment is coming, but also that there is redemption, that there is an ark, that there is a way, and that, like Enoch, we can walk with God amid the chaos. This topic is not to fuel theories, it is to awaken, to open spiritual eyes, to cry out for discernment, for holiness, for direction, because the 200 failed, but you and I still have time. We can still choose to obey. We can renounce desire disguised as revelation. We can choose truth, even if it hurts, obedience, even if it costs, holiness, even if it means loneliness. And you, are you prepared to discern between what seems good and what truly comes from God? Today, more than ever, this mystery calls us to look beyond the veil. to not settle for superficial versions of faith. The 200 angels remind us that even the celestial can fall when it strays from divine will. What do you think about this mystery? Do you believe these events still affect our spiritual world today? We want to read your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe to the channel, share this video, and stay vigilant, because what was may return, and only those who walk with God like Enoch will be found worthy to escape all this. So be it.